Hello, this is me, Cindy Spear, and normally when you come to this channel, you come to listen to me read folk tales and fairy tales. But I wanted to actually take a moment to talk to you about how sword fighting is the same as writing, or a lot like it. This conversation is inspired by me looking at a lot of people's blogs or comments in forums, and I see a lot of people are taking this time to start writing, and it's fantastic. And I totally encourage it because more stories, the better. But people have been doing a lot of stuff like saying things like, but I need to read this book first, or I need to take these classes on technique first. And while I'm totally cool with classes and books, and I totally think you should do it, I also want to make sure to remind you that you don't want taking classes, reading books on technique, to get in the way of actually writing. It's so easy to allow things to stop you from sitting down and writing the story. And that's why it's like fencing. I practice historical swordsmanship as well, and there are tons and tons and tons of manuals about historical fighting written by men from the period. And I can sit there and I could read Capofero, who was a Italian master in the 1600s, or Lucknauer, who was much earlier German longsword master. And I could be like, okay, so that's how they did this, and that's how, Capofero does the parries, and that's great, right? Fills your mind with information. But it isn't meaningful information till you actually go out and fence. And it's the same thing with the classes. You can have Neil Gaiman, who I think is the most awesome person in the world, and I know he's doing a master class on writing, tell you all sorts of cool stuff. But it's not meaningful until you actually apply it. It's also about your voice. Because, again, fencing, when you're sword fighting, you're not going to be exactly like Capofero. You're not going to be exactly like the person who's teaching you in your fencing class. And it's partially because of body mechanics. It's partially because, maybe it's not something you like, or it's just not something that you found to work for you. I know some people who have this gorgeous dagger parry that I've never made work for me, where, you thrust, and it's this gorgeous parry, it's almost practically invisible. I never made it work for me, and that's a combination probably of lack of practice, but also that lack of practice comes from the fact that I have other things that work for me perfectly well that I really like, and so why bother? So you have those combinations of things. Body mechanics, again, my body doesn't move the same way as a lot of these people. That's how I find my voice on the field, or my style on the field. It's the same way in writing. Because the things go into your brain and they come out different. Everything composts in the back, and the things, the stylistic choices, the techniques that might work fantastic for, I don't want to pick on Neil Gaiman again, Terry Pratchett or Bernard Cornwell. They work fantastic for those people, but they might not work for you, and it might just be the way your brain is wired. It might be the way that you want the story to go. So you're not going to be able to learn that without sitting down and writing. So my suggestion to you, and take it with as many grains of salt as you want, because it's different for everybody, is definitely apply yourself to learning technique. And that can be through reading good books about it, or reading parts of it. You're like, okay, I seem to be weak in dialogue. I seem to be weak in setting the scene. I seem to not really quite get these things I need to know that cops do for my book. Totally. But do it as a side thing. Take classes, but don't obsess with it. Instead, concentrate on writing. And just because applying what you're learning, and you're learning how to be a good writer every time you read a book, every time you watch television, you're learning about story. Other things that make you a good writer is learning things that interest you, whether by reading books or, like, when I wrote The Chocolatier's Wife, I bought so many books on chocolate because I was looking for this one thing that I saw, the saddle-shaped thing, and I was sure that William would have to use for chocolate making. So, but I didn't let that stop me writing the book. I would read it, and I would let it absorb and go into the back of my head. But I made sure I sat down and tried to get out like 2,000 words a day, is my personal goal. Your goal is different depending on your time and just how fast you happen to write. So that's what you want to do, because it's the practice of writing, just like it's the practice of actually picking up the sword and fighting people, that will make you a good writer. You have to practice. And so that means when you're starting out, your first book might not be something you can publish, because you want to write through all the things that have been building up in your head for years. All the, I hate to say trite, but there's things like that everybody seems to have to write their way through, concepts or things that we just love when we see them in movies or we've read them in other books. We need to write through so that we get it out of our system. But also it strengthens those muscles in your mind, and it makes you better. And so someday you will write a book. You will finish it, and it'll be amazing. Don't consider that time wasted, because I promise you it's not. And you might be able to salvage some good stuff out of there and rewrite it and finish that. So, write. That's all. Fill your muse. Learn technique. But don't let it get in the way of actually sitting down and writing. Okay, that's my nonsense I wanted to blather at you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I'm going to try and keep staring at the camera while I work my mouth. Oh, I was trying not to. Yeah. Anyway, take care of yourself. I'm grateful to you for listening. Bye-bye.